what is some of the mindset changes do you think that people can make in order to have that more optimistic mindset towards it?
Well, I think the first thing to say with regard to that is that it's to sort of look at this situation with a lens of optimism can be irresponsible. You know, the truth is that we're at a very perilous moment, and to ignore that would be to ignore our means and our moment for transformation. So what we're not saying is look at the challenge out there and kind of assume that it's going to be great, and then that positive thinking will sort of change the world. What we're saying more is, if you look at this challenging situation and you face it with a kind of gritty determination that something can be done about it, that this can't be beyond our ability to do something, that seed of possibility and transformation is a strategy for changing the world. So it's a very deliberate cultivation of an approach. And if the word stubborn optimism that Christiana and I use doesn't work for some people, that's fine. I mean, I also love what the suffragettes said. They said courage calls to courage everywhere, right? That if they were brave and if they stood up and they were counted, then actually that would then call to this sense of courage and possibility in other people. That's closer to what we're talking about here. So in that regard, I would say that comes from very clearly and very soberly looking at the situation we're in. And that will lead you to the conclusion that we're right now about to find out if we're serious as humanity about dealing with this issue. And that requires all of us. No one's coming along to do this for us, right? It's going to be us. Either we're going to sort it out or it's not going to happen. And actually, this is going to slip away from us. And it's literally come down to this moment where every day counts. In this next 10 years, we need to reduce emissions by fully 50%, or else we will have lost control of the climatic system for all of the terrible implications that will have for future generations. So I find that sense of courage and determined optimism lies on the other side of the kind of grief and sadness that comes from looking at the loss of ecosystems and the degradation of the planet and the degradation of people, to go through that and come back to a determined, stubborn optimism. That's been my journey, and that's what I see has really worked for people. So there has to be an emotional honesty about that. And that's a really critical piece of it. So that's the first thing. Cultivating that as a deliberate, determined strategy, how we show up at this moment, sustains us and gives us an enormous amount of meaning in terms of what we're doing. So that's step one. Step two, the way you keep that going is to take action. If you don't take action, it feels like this big, scary thing that's out there that is beyond your control again. But if you start to do things in your life, you start to eat less meat, you start to transform the way you heat your home, you transform the way you transport yourself, etc., then you start to feel like you're a participant in these things. And in that regard, what we say in the book is, what we need to realize is that we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years, right? So make a plan to play your role at this critical moment. Reduce your emissions by fully 50% by the end of the decade. Actually, with thought and care and planning and determination, that's enough time. You're probably going to change your vehicle. You might change your boiler. That's even enough time to actually think about how you generate revenue in your life and maybe change it for that reason. I mean, Christiana and I run a podcast called Outrage and Optimism because we don't want to have to fly around the world all the time and talk to people about climate change. So now we do it from wherever we are and we put it out on the internet, and it's much more effective. So that kind of change, that second piece, is also critical. And then the third piece, how you show up, reduce your own emissions. The third piece is how you engage with power. We all touch power in all sorts of ways in our lives. We're a voter, we might have a pension, we're a consumer, we buy goods and services, we're an employee, we might be on a school board, whatever it is, like map out your life. Where do you touch power, and how can you use that power to exert influence and direction over all of the institutions that you relate with? Because in doing that as well, we need both, right? We need the individual change. We need the systemic change, the levers of power to actually make things happen. And actually, all of that, you get going on that. You start keeping your eyes on how we can change the world. That is a fantastic range of activities to be engaged in.
Thank you for watching this video. To listen to the full podcast, click the link in the description below.